Let's talk about your energetic system. That's the energy that your body is made of. In the last video, I talked about how you're made entirely of energy, and we went all the way down to the level of the photon. And you were able to see how a photon, which is one of the smallest particles of your body, behaves either as a wave, which is a little package of light, or as a particle, which is a little package of matter. And what makes the distinction between how that photon behaves is what you want it to behave as. So our bodies are made of light when we start to tune into that truth. So now in this video, I want to take it one step further. And if you haven't watched the first video on the photon, go back and watch that one before you watch this one, so that we can start to now organize the energy in your body. Why do I want to talk about this? And I feel that it is so important that you know this information, and this is why. In our science classes, we learn about our bodies. We learn about bodies in a more static form. We learn anatomy and physiology. We learn, if we're lucky, about the organ systems. And in medical school, I got to learn about it all. I've always been fascinated by the human body. But what I realized through all of my medical education is that something was missing for me. I was taught in medical school that our body has self-healing capacities, that there's something going on beneath the level of static anatomy that's creating order, that's the driving force of growth and development, and actually is the divine force that heals us. And what is it that we're talking about? Energy. So when we start to bring energy into the equation, we move beyond our bodies in a static form. In medical school, I always joke that I learned anatomy and physiology on a dead person. And anatomy and physiology is not static. It's always moving. It's always, cells are dying, cells are being birthed. Our systems are in a state of ebb and flow like an ocean. And that is because we are made of energy. And that energy has structure. That energy feeds all of the cells of the body. The energy is what breathes us, grows us, and heals us. And we have a relationship with this energy. The more that we get to know how this energy moves into our bodies, is structured, the more we can start to work with it. And then we step back into our bodies energetically for the sake of healing. That's the magic here. The more you know about your system, the more you can work with it, and then you can take control back again and ownership over your body's ability to heal. That's what this is all about. So let's go in. I want to go through, to start, an overview of how energy is organized in your body, and then we'll go into 5 main parts of your energetic system, the most important parts of your energetic system as I see them. But let's start with a brief overview. So, at the moment of your conception, your egg and sperm come together and you become a fertilized egg. When your egg is fertilized, when you literally become fertilized as an egg, there's a linear streak that forms along the cell, the fertilized cell, okay? That is a column of energy, and it continues on through your whole life. You never lose that column of energy. That column of energy is called your central channel. In the embryo, that column of energy is a linear streak through which all mitotic division happens, all cellular differentiation happens. It later becomes what we call a notochord. That notochord gives way to the neural crest cells, which become your spine. This notochord kind of dissolves away, but what we find in the human is, and all beings actually, is that linear column of energy is always present. It's breathing, pulsing energy through your whole body. It lives just in front of your spine. And then it has all of these different energy centers that come off of it. So the linear column of energy, your central channel, is one that goes all the way down into the earth. It kind of scoops up energy from the earth. These energies from the earth, they always move up through the body and move into the channel first, and then they start to feed different energy centers that are seated along the central channel. Inside of your body, there's 6 energetic centers. One that lives all the way down in the lowest part of your pelvis. That's the first center. We're going to talk about that one. And then every few inches going up your spine along the linear channel here, there's another energy center until we get up into the middle of your brain. That's energy center number 6. And then the central channel continues on through the very top of your head and goes all the way up into the sky. And that connects you back into source, the energy that is made of, that we're all made of. We are all connected to this source. You can call it God. You can call it divine, universal force. You can call it anything you want to. Personally, I call it source energy. And that's the energy that we're all made up of, including the earth. The earth is a child of this source. We are children of this source. We are all connected to one another through source energy. Okay. Now, through the central channel, there's energy that runs up from the earth through the entire body, through the top of the head, all the way up into source, sky, and then right back down through. Now, in perfect form, our body is whole and flowing. The energy stream through that central channel is beautifully clear. And then it runs into each one of those 6 energy centers inside of our body without any obstructions or impediments. And that helps us to be able to be an integrated, coherent, energetic system. The energy centers each have their own plexus of nerves that they feed. So in the first energy center way down in the pelvis, we have a huge plexus of nerves there called the lumbosacral plexus. And that lumbosacral plexus gives branching off nerves in every direction that then feeds all of the structures, the lower abdominal organ systems, our genitals, our legs, our hips, the muscles and bones and joints of that lower part of our bodies are all fed by the plexus, that's fed by the first energy center, that's fed by the central channel, that's fed by source and earth. So we always have to go way back down to source energy in order to get the full picture of what our body is made of. And in school, we don't go there. We stop at neurology. We don't even start to think about, well, what is it that feeds neurology? What is it that feeds all of us? What is directing us? And until we start to get really curious about those questions, we're missing the magic, really. And that's where healing happens. It's all the way down at source level. And so in order for us to really dive into healing ourselves, we have to understand what is it that's responsible for the healing. And then how do we align with that? How do we align with it in order to work and be in concert with it, in relationship with the energy of source? Okay. So that, in a nutshell, is how your energetic body is structured just inside of your body. There's a lot more going on. You have an entire bioelectric field that runs outside of your body as well, and many, many, many layers to that. But for the sake of simplicity, we're just going to stay inside of your body. So the 5 main elements that I want to talk about in this video are, number 1, we already talked about the central channel. Okay, so the central channel is the most important thing for you to know about. It forms at the moment of your conception. And off of that central channel, you have all these energy centers that run along your spine. So imagine that your spinal column is being fed by this one continuous, linear, beautiful column of light. That's your central channel. Each energy center branching off of it is going to feed a specific section of your body, because that energy center goes into a specific plexus of nerves. It feeds a specific section of your spine, your organs, your blood vessels, all of it, okay? And anywhere along the central channel, we can have obstructions, and we will get into, in future videos, I'll start talking about how energy comes in and starts to stagnate, because it's so important to begin to understand why we feel disconnected from our bodies at times. But for this video, we're just going to go into these key components of your energetic system so you can just get an overall understanding of how it all works. So after your moment of conception, this linear column of energy starts to become, there's a swelling within the lowest part of your body. And that then becomes your very first energy center, okay? In the adult, the energy center is found just between the tip of the coccyx, which is the lowest part of your spine bone, okay, that tiny little triangle-shaped bone at the very base of your spine, that's your coccyx. Just below that is your first energy center, and it sits kind of between your pelvic floor muscles, if you know where those are, and the tip of your coccyx. There's a little space there. That is your first energy center. That center develops from about 8 weeks on in utero, and then continues to be the predominant energy center of your whole body until you're about 7 and sometimes up to 9 years old. This energy center is responsible for your bony development. It is your foundation. This center also governs your immune system. It governs your lower abdominal organs, your genitals, all of the structures of your lower extremities, your hips, your lower gastrointestinal system. And so that's more from a physiologic perspective. That's what is being, when this center develops, it gives life to all of those parts of your body. It governs all your bones. So it forms your spine. It forms your musculoskeletal system. It's a big deal because obviously we need to have bones in order to move around on this planet, right? So without a healthy first energy center, we would have a very significantly impaired physiologic body. But there's more than that. This first center, more from an energetic and emotional perspective, is what helps you to feel safe and secure in the world. So because this center is the one that develops from the time of conception until you're about 7 to 9 years old, it takes in information. You can imagine yourself as a child just sponging in information from your environment, from your family, from your parents, from your siblings, from your peers, and all the information from your outer environment comes in and becomes basically absorbed into the center, and then this center holds all that information. If that information is serving you, is healthy, is able to become processed as it comes in, then it will add to the evolution of your musculoskeletal system, of your whole body framework. But when information comes in, events in your life that may be traumatic, for example, start to come in, energy comes into the center really, really quickly, and it overwhelms the ability for this particular energetic center to process that information. Therefore, this center can become somewhat closed down. It will push that energy off to the side somewhere in an unprocessed form, and therefore this center can become closed, wounded, or offline somehow. And when that happens, it starts to impair the flow of energy into the rest of your body. Okay, so as a child, it's so important that we know that early childhood wounding is going to affect the development of the rest of our energetic system, and therefore can cause problems down the road, both in our emotional states and in our physical states. Okay, so after the first 7 to 9 years, we then start to move into the second energy center. And this energy center is really responsible for our ability to have healthy relationships. It's our intimate center. It's our ability to feel creative, the flow of life. It's our ability to really process our emotions and feel and connect in with the emotions of other people, therefore creating a bond or a connection with them. And this is also our pleasure centers, our sexual centers develop here. And so when there is an impediment to flow from the first center because of traumas that we've had when we were a kid, maybe there was some strife in the marriage of our parents, and we witnessed a lot of discord in their ability to love one another and show up for one another, and that then affects our safe and secure foundation in our home. Well, then we're going to have a kind of faulty foundation for how we develop in life from that time period onward, and therefore it's going to affect how we are in relationship with others. So that's the second center. Now, when this center starts to close down just a little bit, it can affect us emotionally, of course. It can also affect us physiologically. We can have problems with our digestion. We can have problems with, our ability to be receiving pleasure, sexual pleasure, connecting to other people. it can really affect our ability to have a healthy sense of creativity, imagination, and really feeling our health from an emotional perspective. When we're open and healthy in this center, we have emotions that flow, we have friendships that are healthy, we feel one with others and one with ourselves. Okay, and now let's move up to the next energetic. So we've talked about the central channel as the first part of the energetic system, the first energy center as the second. We went into the second energy center as the third most important part of your energetic system as I see it. And now we're going to go up into the third energy center, which is your solar plexus center. Now this center, and the reason I'm going into these lower three energy centers is because these are the ones that get the most wounded in our lives. And these are the ones that are the most important to understand, because as we start to go into our energetic bodies and start moving energies through them, it's so important that we start from the first center and move up, because that's where wounding begins, and it's where healing also begins. So when we start to work in the first center and start to ground down into our bodies again and get the energy out of these really sometimes crazy and chaotic brains of ours, that we have to go all the way down to the root where we were foundationally traumatized as children, and move up from there. And so by the time we get up into this fourth element of your energetic system that we're going to talk about today, your solar plexus, if the lower two centers are weakened or somewhat obstructed or closed down because of these early childhood traumas and relationship challenges that we often face, then that's going to start to affect our sense of self. So the third energy center it sits right at the upper portion of the abdomen, just below the xiphoid process of your sternum. And this is the center that fuels your celiac nerve plexus. The celiac nerve plexus is going to feed into the upper abdominal organs, your liver, your gallbladder, your stomach, your pancreas, your adrenal glands. Those are the ones responsible for your survival stress responses, and your kidneys. Okay, so physiologically, this center has a lot to do with your ability to digest and to regulate organ function in your body. And so when this center is now affected, if energy is not flowing in the lower two centers, then it's going to somewhat obstruct some of the energy as it flows through the third center. This center energetically is responsible for your self-esteem, your sense of self-confidence, your ability to really show up for yourself, to stand in your own ground, to have sovereignty, to feel empowered in your life, in your body. And so when we don't have a foundation in our lives, then we can become very weakened in our truth, in our knowing, in our confidence. And therefore we become sometimes really insecure. We lack self-confidence. We lack self-assuredness. We have weak boundaries with other people. We can become codependent on others. And these are all hallmark signs for a wounded third energetic center. Now, these lower three centers are the most important centers to know about when it comes to healing, because in our spiritual communities, oftentimes we focus on the upper centers, the ones like the one in the head, for example, gives energy to our pineal gland. That's the one that helps us feel enlightened, and we love feeling blissed out. We love feeling enlightened. You know, a lot of people use mood-altering substances because they just want to be, in a state of euphoria and bliss all the time. But what they don't know is that in order for us to stay in those states for the long haul, right, for us to have an anchoredness in our opened, expanded spiritual states, we must do the groundwork first. Okay, another way of saying that is we have to root down before we can rise and expand. So the canopy of leaves of the tree is only going to flourish as long as it has an extensive and healthy root network, the root being your first energy center. Now, once we get up into the next center above the third one, the solar plexus, now we're in the heart. And we all love our hearts. So this is the fifth element of the energy center that I really want to talk about today, because our hearts are the most powerful energy center in the entire body. And when we live from a place that is heart-centered, we feel one with one another. We feel one with ourselves. We feel one with the planet. And that really is the ultimate goal of every human on this planet. We want to feel, receive, and give love in limitless supply. We want to trust that love is unconditional and that we can sense and feel that unconditional love for ourselves and for others. And a lot of times when we have wounding in our early lives and our energetic system as a result becomes impaired, we oftentimes will go into counseling where we'll start to talk about our stories and start to talk about our traumas. And the thing that can happen is that we intellectualize the experience that we had when we were kids. The reason I'm telling you all of this is because what I have found to be true, and I have been one of the most traumatized people that, well, I shouldn't say that. I did have a lot of early childhood trauma, and I spent a lot of time in counseling, and I spent a lot of time understanding my story. What I learned about counseling is that while it was helpful for me to learn the story of how I became so disconnected, blunted emotionally, my heart was always, I always felt quite numb in my heart. What ended up happening down the road is that I learned that I am not able to, nor are you, heal intellectualize in an intellectualized way. That in order for healing to happen, we have to get into our bodies and start to heal all the way down at the root level. Meaning, we have to go down to the very first energy center and go back to the time in our lives before the traumas happened in our youth. And we don't do that from a place of intellectualizing it. We do that from a place of alchemizing the energy that got stuck down there. And we don't have to understand it. This is the beautiful part of healing in this way. We will never understand all the ways that we were traumatized. We will never understand energy, because energy is, it's evasive, right? It's limitless. It is real. But the most important thing is that in order for us to do our healing work, what is required, and all that is required, is that we go in to each of these energy centers and we reside within them. We take our mind, the focus of our mind, and we drop down into our centers. We start to breathe energy into the middle of those centers, which is going to push out unprocessed energy, alchemize unprocessed energy. When we can start to work with it and see it and move it, that is all that is needed. It is a magical equation. Our bodies were designed to actually go back down and process these energies. That's really all that's ever been wanted. And so now that you have a better sense of what really can happen here, it's so important that you know that the only thing that your body wants is for you to go back down there, specifically into the lower three energy centers, and start to open them up one by one by one. Once we get energy moving through those centers will actually open back up again, and all of those beautiful attributes that are offered by each one of those centers comes back in. When we open up our first center, we feel grounded, we feel rooted, we feel stable, we have energy to burn because we're being fed by the energy of the earth, and it's coming up into us. We can feel it. We feel this sense of vitality, of strength in our bones. Then we go into the second center because the first one's now opened. And as we get energy moving through the second center, we have this sense of intimate love. We have this sense of ourselves emotionally. We feel anchored and rooted in our ability to feel any emotion that comes our way, regardless of how uncomfortable that is, because we feel so anchored to the earth that we know that there's nothing that's going to blow us over. As a result of that, we can hold other people in our space as they're decompensating and having their emotional experiences. We're there for them. We have deep, intimate connections with people and with ourself. Life becomes pleasurable. Again, energy and creative flow runs through us, and then that feeds up into the third center, and now all of a sudden we are self-confident, we are self-empowered, we are sovereign, we have healthy energetic boundaries, we know who we are, we know what we're here to offer, we do so with self-confidence and self-esteem, and that then all moves up into the fourth center, the heart. It all then gets infused with love. Therefore, our love is anchored, intimate, creative, and sovereign. We love ourselves, we love others, and we can hold a space of love that is so stable, that is not in and out. It's not conditional, it is unconditional and expansive. Now that is how we get to be in our bodies when we step back in. And so in the next video, what I'd love to outline is how can we really start to work with this. This video, the intention of this video was just to give you a sense of how do we get back into our bodies by understanding the structure of your energetic system in a big way, but also as we kind of break down these lower 4 energy centers. The upper centers are something else to be discussed, and these centers I feel are worthy of their own video. Additionally, I offer in future videos, I will be offering different steps, tools that you can use to start moving the energy through each one of these centers. We're going to go into each center one by one by one. Of note, I am holding, this video will be released tomorrow, which I believe is November 18th, 2021. But 2 days from then, on the 20th of November, if you happen to be watching this video as it's released, come join us on Saturday, where we will actually take a deep dive into the 10 steps for energetic self-treatment, which is why I wanted to release this video today, so that you had a generalized framework. The next step is going to be for you to actually start working within your energetic system and moving energy through it so that your body can actually heal again, return to wholeness. So like this video, if it offered you valuable information, please do share it with your friends. And I will be back again next week with the next installment of your self-treatment process and your energetic system. There is so much more to come, so stay tuned.